are you today?
Doing fabulous, thank you.
Excellent. Where are you calling in from?
I live in a small town called Laverne, California. So basically Los Angeles.
How are things there?
Great. Actually, it's a beautiful day today. It's nice and sunny. It feels like summer today.
Yeah, amazing. So to start off, could you introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Eddie Garcia. I was a former dancer for Michael Jackson on the Bad and Dangerous tour. I'm a choreographer. I still dance every now and then. That's basically, I started dancing when I was 13 years old. And then it basically was blessed to be given opportunities to work with some of the best people in the industry. So I feel pretty fortunate.
Yes, I can't wait to dive into your dance work. But before that, I understand that you've done some acting work too. Could you
I
just
have.
could you tell me a bit about this, please?
So probably the most known thing that I've done is there's a show called Saved by the Bell that was very popular here in America. I don't know if it was popular in England. I think they showed it there. It was I played a teen idol who was doing an anti-dope commercial named Johnny Dakota, and then the kids find out that he's actually does drugs. So he was he was misleading, because at the time here in the States that was a big problem. There were a lot of teen idols that were doing these commercials basically saying don't do drugs, that were doing a lot of drugs. So
Yeah.
I was kind of the bad guy.
So how and when did you become interested in dance?
Well, I started actually when I was 7. I was very into I was watching a Bob Hope movie, and they did a tap dance, and I went to my parents and asked if there would be any way that I could do what they were doing in the movie. So they found a local studio called Miss Marty's Dance Studio, and I started doing tap lessons there, and I really enjoyed tap. It was I think because of the percussion aspect of it. I stayed there for a few years, and then my teacher retired, and so she closed her studio. And then flash forward, my sister was working on something, and I met a director, and they put me in a musical. It was Superman the musical, which is, some people know it, some people don't. But I was a kid, I was a paper boy, and I do a little tap dance in it. And one of the girls that was one of the leads recommended a tap teacher to me at a professional drop-in studio in Los Angeles. So I was 12 and a half, went in to basically check out the tap class, and they convinced me to start taking other forms of dance. They were like, you should take ballet, you should take jazz. It'll just, really inform how you move. And 6 months after I started dancing there, I auditioned for a scholarship program there, and I was on scholarship at Dupre Dance Academy for 2.5 years. And they were the best of the best at the time. And my teachers were so unbelievable. They were nurturing. They encouraged my creativity. They also taught me a lot about how to conduct myself when I was working. Yeah. So I really do think everything that happened after that was because of how my teachers at that dance studio informed me of how to be as a dancer.
Yeah. So did you have any other inspirations as far as dance goes?
When I was a kid and I was dancing, every teacher that I took from would recommend somebody to me. So like I was introduced to all the greats. I would watch Fred Astaire, I would watch Gene Kelly, I would watch the Nicholas brothers. Those were all the tap influences for me that I was like, oh, they're fantastic. I would watch Baryshnikov, like from a ballet aspect. My ballet teachers were like, you're gonna like the way he moves, because I was on the fence about taking ballet at the time because I wasn't sure, I was young. Once I saw him and how dynamic it was, then they introduced me to other male ballet dancers, and they were all so unique, and they all did these crazy tricks that I'd never seen, you know, and I was like, wow, I want to do that. And then jazz, I think I was Bob Fosse, Jack Cole. There were so many different people that my teachers always taught me about history. I would watch West Side Story. You know, it was they were like, you should check out all the great musicals because they're gonna again inform you about what you do. For at some point in my life, they were telling me that I will probably do what they're doing. So it's best to go back and learn what they did so that I knew what to do when I was doing it. Did that make sense?
So did you have a favorite dance style at the time?
I loved everything. I mean, I was technically I would say I was a jazz dancer, but like, you know, at the time, you know, that's when the street styles started coming through. So you'd have popping, you'd have locking, you'd have breakers, but it was very new.
Yeah.
So I was again blessed to be at 14, I was in a movie called Electric Boogaloo, Breaking
Oh,
2.
yeah, very good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I interviewed Poppin' Pete from
Yes, yes. I know him well, yes. So when I did that movie, I met Shabadoo and I met Boogaloo Shrimp, and they both Shabadoo, you know, rest in peace, was very sweet. He loved the fact that this kid that was the technical dancer loved what he did. So he was like, because I was like, I want to do it the way you guys do it. I don't want to do it the way I'm told. Like, I want to do it the way you guys do it because you guys are the guys. And I think because I approached it that way, they embraced me and they took me into their family and they taught me. And that helped me later in life, especially like when I started working with Michael. I could pull from those things and it was authentic because I went to the source. And that was something my teachers always taught me is go to the source and you're going to learn what it's really about.
Yeah, my dad loved breaking when he was younger. It's what inspired him to try and start break dancing.
Oh, nice. Yes. I tried for a little bit, but it was just so hard. I could do little bits, little easy stuff.
So before your work with Michael, you worked with Janet Jackson. Could you tell me more about this experience, please, and the videos you worked on?
Yes. So when I was at Dupre Dance Academy, I was taking from a teacher named Jackie Slight. She taught the advanced jazz class, which was at the time it was called like Jazz 5. You know, it was like, ooh. And while we were in class, Paula Abdul came to watch class. And after class, her and her assistant came up to me and asked me if I would be interested in working on a video. And I was like, sure, you know, that sounds like videos were very new then, you know, it was like, it's like right at the beginning era of like videos coming out. I was like, oh, that would be fantastic. She explained it. She goes, so it's going to be for Janet Jackson, who's Michael Jackson's little sister. She has a new album coming out. And this is going to be the beginning of her project. So I was like, that sounds, you know, fun. You know, I talked to my parents. They were like, no, absolutely. You know, so that's how I started with Janet. And then when I worked on it, Paula really enjoyed the way I conducted myself on the set, how hard I worked. So when they did Nasty, they brought a few of us back. So I was in What Have You Done For Me Lately first. And then I did Nasty. And then it was the same thing. And then When I Think of You was the third one. Janet was very sweet. I learned, I think that really prepped me for when I would start to work with Michael, because there were things about both of them, and you can tell they're brother and sister. They're just things about them. You can tell they're family. Having the opportunity to work with Paula at the time, I mean, she basically gave me my like big break dancing, you know, and being on a set and learning how to do all that, because I was very young, you know, I was only 16 years old. So being on a set and learning from these adults on how to do a video what's needed of me, how, like, the hours were crazy. Like when we did Nasty, we filmed from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was all night
Oh,
shoots. Yeah, so you had to go to sleep during the daytime, get up, and then get there. And I was like 16, so I had to be careful driving because you're not supposed to drive after a certain time. So I was like, okay, well, they're like, oh no, you'll be done by this time, so you'll be able to go home. All right, cool.
so how did working with Janet then compare to your work with Michael later on?
They're very similar in the sense that they both work really hard. They care about their craft. I think she's just as dedicated. She cares as much about what she's doing. She cares about the fans the same way. The both of them, like, again, I was there because Control was kind of her breakthrough. She had albums before, but it really was where, oh, you're more than just being the little sister of the Jacksons.
Yeah.
You have all these other gifts that she just hadn't had the opportunity to really show it and shine. She worked hard in rehearsals. Like, it was funny because when I started working with him, I saw the similarities. I went, whoa, this is
Yeah.
funny. Because starting with her, I didn't know, how he would be. But once I started with him, he was very particular, and so was she. She was very aware of everything that was always going on. He was always very aware of everything that was going on. They were very positive people too. They were always very complimentary. So I really respected that. And that's what I really enjoyed about working with both of them.
How and when did you become involved with working with Michael? What was your first sort of experience and contact with him?
So I have to go back a few years. So when I was 14 years old, there was an audition for Captain EO. And but they didn't tell you. A lot of times they wouldn't tell you what it's for. We just knew there was an audition for Jeffrey Hornaday, and it was for a project that they couldn't tell us about. They did tell us Francis Ford Coppola was working on it, and George Lucas. So I was like, oh. So I went to the audition. I did very well at the audition, and I got a phone call from the casting people telling me that I had booked the job, and I was super excited. I was 14 years old. I was like, yeah. And then they told me it was for Michael Jackson. And I was like, what? I was like freaking out. So then the next day, I got another phone call telling me that they unfortunately wouldn't be able to use me because of my age, because they decided to take, there were two of us that were underage. We were going to play kids. Like it was the storyline was a little different. Coppola just didn't want to have to deal with having children on set. It becomes limiting, like what you can do. So they decided to remove the kids out of the, but then the choreographer threw my information back into the pile. So then they called me again to do a wardrobe fitting. So then I thought I was doing it again. And then they called me again to apologize that they had made a mistake. So I was really frustrated.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this could have been my chance. Then flash forward, I got to work with Janet. I was like, well, sometimes things happen the way they do at the right time. And then I got another phone call. I was working on a Coca-Cola commercial, but they're like, there's a audition happening for Vincent Patterson. They wouldn't tell us what it was about. They wouldn't tell us who it was for. So I knew exactly who it was for because I knew. I was like, I know what this is. So I went to the audition, and I had to be out of the audition by a certain time because I had to go to do a wardrobe fitting for the Coca-Cola commercial I was doing. I checked with the assistant choreographer to see if it would be okay if I went in one of the first two groups. He was like, let me check. They totally made it possible. I was very grateful to Vincent for that. Audition. Joey Malone came up and said, Joe Malone said, hey, come back to our callback. It'll be in a couple days. So it didn't interfere with my Coca-Cola commercial. It was perfect.
Yeah.
I was like so excited, so pumped. Came back to the callback, ran into Vincent in the hallway, and he because I hadn't spoken with him. And he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, they told me I had a callback. And he goes, he proceeded to tell me that I didn't have to actually do the callback, that I'd already gotten the job and it was okay. And I was like, yeah, I was like, okay. So, and then I was like, please don't let this be like the other time, which now I had by this time graduated high school and I also was emancipated. So my age didn't have to be a factor. So got the phone call, boom, everything set, was started in rehearsals. And then the first day we were on the set, Michael came to the set. You could tell something changed in the room. You could feel the energy was different. And he came in, said hello to everybody. And it was like, oh, wow, this is really super cool. So I was treating it like a job, so my first interaction with him was we're at the doorway when he flips the coin to go into the jukebox, and we're waiting, and he's saying, and he turned around because I was sitting on the desk, and he goes, my sister. And I was like, I do. And he goes, you're in her video. And I was like, I am. And he goes, you did all the turns, right? And I was like, I did. He goes, was that a camera trick? And I was like, no. And he goes, yeah, that's what she said. And I was like, oh, cool. And then that was it. Like, that was our conversation. But I was like, I was so taken back by the fact that he knew that I was in her video.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool to me. And we worked on Smooth Criminal for, I think, a total of the whole Moonwalker project was like 7 weeks. Like, it was a lot. So we got to know him. When he spoke to me, I spoke to him. I didn't want to ever bother him. So while we were filming, every now and then he would have a little conversation with me just about stuff, and he would talk about music or talk about dance and talk about, things. And then one day he was like, hey, would you ever want to do a tour? And I was like, oh yeah, that would be really cool. But I didn't know he was talking about for him. I just thought he was talking about like someday for somebody. And then 3 months went by and I got a phone call from his office asking if I would still be interested in doing the tour. And I was like, okay, and that's how it started. Like, I was like, again, feel super grateful for all of the people that got me there. Vincent for giving me the chance to dance, in Smooth Criminal, gave me the opportunity to work with Michael on the Bad Tour, and it gave me an opportunity to do The Way You Make Me Feel. Like, all of those things are all because he gave me a chance.
Before Smooth Criminal, what was the atmosphere like on set? And did you think it would become as popular and as iconic as it did?
They treated it like a movie.
Yeah.
But it was a very creative space. We constantly had guest people coming in to watch us film, or occasionally we had people that would come in and sing. And like, there was always this creative nature because Michael was very much about like bringing out the best of everybody. Again, I was young. I was like 17 years old. So I mostly sat back and tried to observe everything. And then tried to learn how to do some of the stuff like some of the adults were doing. I was like, because they were, I would say I was green, I was very new to all this. So I wanted to make sure I never overstepped my boundaries. I wanted to make sure that, with my creativity, I wanted to make sure that I didn't do something that was wrong or, so I just let myself kind of watch and feel the vibes. But we worked really, really hard on that shoot. We modeled it after Bandwagon, the Fred Astaire movie. We literally sat and watched guys like Vincent called us over. They had a TV set up with the video cassette. Do you know what those are? Do you know what video cassettes are? Just making sure. I don't know. So put the video cassette in. They had it queued up, and we'd watch the whole scene. And Vincent would go, see this guy? And he would point and he goes, you're going to be that guy. So watch all the things he's doing, because somewhere in while we're doing what we're doing, we want you to do something like he does. And I went, okay. So I got the guy that does, like, they call him duck walks, which is like this thing on, plus I was the youngest. So they probably were like, well, he can do it over and over all day long. So there's a guy that I had to watch, that's how he comes into the in Bandwagon. That's how he enters into the like gangsters hangout. So I had to learn how to do the duck walks. That was like my thing. I was like, oh, he did that. That was unique to his character. I think that attention to detail is what made it special. Thriller was kind of the beginning of that, like, Beat It started it, but Thriller really solidified this like experience, you know. And then Smooth Criminal put the camera inside of it, where like Thriller, you were watching it, you're watching from the outside. Smooth put the cameras everywhere, like, because they literally were moving us around and closing walls and opening walls. And so I think more, again, like kind of like the way they used to do musicals, you know, and also, I mean, that's kind of what they do with musicals now. The camera's inside of the musical, and it guides you to where you are going to go next. So I think that's what makes Smooth so unique and so special, is that people they felt like they were watching a musical again.
Yeah.
Which is what he intended. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to bring back the musicals because they were the things that he loved as a kid.
Definitely. You then went on to work on The Way You Make Me Feel short film. How did you get to work on this? And I've heard that there were actual gang members on set. Is this true? And what was that like?
So The Way You Make Me Feel. So we were getting ready for the Bad Tour. Vincent came up to me and Lavelle, and so they wanted to use 3 African Americans and 1 Latin. So I fit into the Latin category since my last name's Garcia. So they're like, you're going to be the Latin guy. I was like, ah. So Vincent was already working with us, you know, he had worked with us on some of the stuff. So it was, I think, easy to bring Lavelle and I in together. When it's a short segment, so it was easy. It wasn't easy, but it was easy to put together because Lavelle and I were already prepping for the Bad Tour, so we were all already kind of cohesive in how we were working together. When we got to the set, yes, there were real gang members. There were Mexican gang members and Crips, and they don't get along. But they were fine on set because they kept them separate. You know, I remember the Crips. Michael Bush told us that they wanted to starch their pants and put the crease in there themselves because they had to be a certain way to be real. And they're like, go ahead. You know, so, and it was funny because the Crips didn't really talk to me because I fit more of where the Mexican gang. The Mexican gang guys totally talked to me. They're like, hey, what's up, SA? And I was like, what up? You know, and even when they sat to eat, they sat separately. They were parole officers there, and they were kids, you know, they're not kids, but young men who at some point in their life, I think, made mistakes, and to have an opportunity to do something positive, like being on a set, you know, doing a video, to give them a different outlook other than prison, you know, and understanding, you know, you can have a second chance. You can I have friends like that who are actors who's, you know, pulled themselves out of the gang life, but go back into the community to try to encourage kids to understand there's other ways out of this, what we're in, you know, through acting, through dancing, through whatever it is, there are other ways out. So that seeing that opportunity and being able to sit down and actually have conversations. And I think them understanding that we weren't judgmental of them, because we weren't. We would sit there, I would listen to them the whole day. They were telling me stories, crazy stories. And I was like, wow, okay, wow. But the fact that I wasn't judging them, I think made them appreciate us and what we were doing.
Yeah, that must have been incredible for them.
Yeah, they were, you know, they never showed how excited they were, because they, you know, you got to be cool. But I think, again, you know, being on the set and being around what we were doing was kind of magical, you know. Again, Hollywood's real cool, you know, jail not so much, you know. So
Bee Demon is one of Michael Jackson's best and most underrated short films. You played Spike the Rabbit. So how did you become involved in this?
again, it's we were again getting ready for doing the tour, and they needed somebody to come in to basically just be a kind of a stand-in, you know,
Right.
just so Vincent was like, I think he felt like my energy was correct for what was, you know, Spike was going to be. When I got to the set, they showed me the little version of Spike. There was like a little version, and the claymation people were like, this is going to be, this is what Spike's going to look like. And but Spike wasn't really all me. Like, he's kind of a mix. They filmed me doing certain things, and they filmed Michael doing stuff, because they didn't want it to be a direct copy of Michael. They wanted him to have his own moves, things that he did that were a little more unique to the rabbit. And then they wanted, but there's certain things in it that you can tell, like there's, if you really watch it, you can tell when it's Michael and when it's not Michael, like when it's me. At least I can. I'm like, hey, that was me. But it was a really cool experience, because Michael and I would dance together, and then they would film Michael by himself, you know, dancing with the background, and then they would film me by myself dancing with the background, and then they would just film the background, and then they would insert Spike where I was, you know, and they would put him there. And they explained it to me. They're like, oh, he's gonna go right here, and he's gonna do what you're doing. And then the claymation people would take what we did and make the claymation, which is unbelievable.
That's fascinating.
Dude, yeah, because it's not like they were using a computer, you know. It was like they were physically moving the little clay guy to do the moves. So I thought that was like unreal, you know. And they were the best. They were the best in the business.
So for that, did you have much creative input as far as the choreography goes, and did you do much freestyle?
Choreography was all Vincent, you know, and Michael together, because, you know, they would always collaborate. The freestyle a little bit, like there's a wave where he does a wave and then a wave. That was me. They, you know, they're like, Vincent was like, do some kind of a move and then wave, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll do the wave, you know. And I was like, so that was me. The turning, they told me he was going to grab my hand and spin me. So
Yeah.
I, you know, to try to just turn, which was difficult because it was the resistance of feeling Michael grab and throw. You know, I had to find that balance so that I could balance. So mostly, and again, even in my freestyle, Vincent was always directing kind of what he would like what he would like to see. You know, the freestyle moments is me kind of dancing to the song, you know, and because they just wanted to get some ideas of other movement. They had Michael do the same thing, just freestyle to the song. And then that's, again, they just took us and they mashed us together.
What was it like behind the scenes on Michael's videos? And were there ever any like deleted scenes or anything that you remember?
The sets were always we were very secretive about everything. You know, Michael was always, don't ruin the magic. You know, don't. I've always, it's to this day, I always tell, even when I choreograph stuff, don't tell everybody what you're doing. just show them. Like if you spoil the ending of a movie before you see it, then you don't have to see the movie anymore. And it's the same with like live shows, videos, anything. Michael was like, don't spoil it. Don't tell people. Don't let them know, you know, anything before they see it, because then it takes them, then they're going to have an expectation of what they think it's going to be. And so I still take that to heart. I still try to do that. What was the second part of your question?
Were there any ever like deleted scenes or anything that we didn't get to
Oh,
see?
I think there are a lot actually in Speed Demon. We filmed a lot. We were all over the lot on that one. I just don't remember, you know, like in Smooth Criminal, pretty much what you see is what we did, you know, other than their other angles, you know, of the sequences.
Yeah.
The dance is pretty much straight through. There is you remember when the cat goes across the piano?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did that. I played the piano. He had me like do this whole like little freestyle and play the piano and do it. And then the cat got the job instead of me for that. So I was like, oh, but I did get to do that. He goes, they were, I was on the set and then Michael was like, hey, can you do something? And just like run your fingers across the piano and do something and then kind of move out. I was like, sure. And I did, but then the cat won, but the cat's cooler. I was like, you know, definitely much cooler.
So you performed on many award shows with Michael, including the Grammys in 1988, MTV in 1995. So could you tell me a bit more about these experiences, please?
So the Grammys was really cool because we were at Radio City Music Hall. And I think that was my first time ever being there. And it was the first time he did The Way You Make Me Feel, that cool jazzy thing.
Yeah.
So when we had the opportunity, and plus we did kind of a different version of the dance, kind of Vincent came in and kind of updated what we did just to give it a different, so you're not seeing the same thing again. You know, it still has elements of the original, but it's a little different. The
Definitely.
fact that it was the four of us and him only on at big stage, and that he could captivate an audience like that, even on that big stage, no one cared. There was only four of us and him. They were like, it was bigger than life. I thought that the energy in New York was like bananas. Like when he started that, like you could hear it went nuts in Radio City Music Hall. It was loud, super, super loud. Now the American Music Awards, or was the MTV Awards? No, I did the American Music Awards. I don't think I did the MTV
Right.
Awards.
Okay.
Yes. So American Music Awards, same thing, but Los Angeles. You know, it's like, and there's a lot more of us. What was really cool about that was the other dancers that were brought in to work on this project. It was really nice brotherhood of male dancers. Gave me an opportunity. I'm still friends with a lot of them. We always talk. But again, this big, massive stage and one person still controlling the entire stage. There was something back about the simplicity of what he could do with things that weren't overpowering behind him with, you know, and the cool part again with that one was it went from the four are still there because we got to do a little segment with him, just the four of us. But then you also had this bigger group, this and the energy of that was new and interesting, you know, because it was all this male energy, like, you know, attacking, and it was fun. Like dancing with that group of guys was just crazy fun. And again, he worked so hard on all that stuff. You know, it was inspired by a Judy Garland. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
No, I haven't heard that before.
There's a Judy Garland movie, which I don't know what it is, but there's an opening sequence where the opening of what we did was inspired by that.
Right, okay. I have to look into that.
Yeah, you're gonna be like.
So you then had the extraordinary opportunity of touring the world with Michael for the Bad Tour. Could you talk to me a bit about the rehearsals and the process of creating the show, please?
Okay, so the bad tour, our first, so we did 3 different legs, basically. So our first leg of the tour, we went to Japan for a month. When we created that version, it's the Yokohama show, I think is the one that's online that people pop up, where I had the banana pants. That's what we call it, because they're bright yellow. Everybody's like, those look like they're banana pants. I was like, yeah, it's true. When we did that, it was Michael and the 4 dancers in a dance studio, just us. And he said, we're going to take elements from the Victory Tour and then a few new elements. And it was kind of like a warm up to get the band and everybody kind of in sync, the band, the singers and the dancers, kind of getting us in sync for a month, and the opportunity to get to do that I wouldn't say it was practice, but it was kind of practice for me, like learning how all of how everything works. So then we came back after our little short stint in Japan. I think we went to Australia with that one, but I'm not sure. I think no, we went to Australia. When we went to Australia, we did the other version, which is we came back. Vincent came in, and basically we spent time down in Pensacola, Florida, and there was an arena there, and Vincent directed the show, restructured it. We took then there were very little elements from the Victory Tour. Most of it was more his new material. Took that, and then that became the bad tour that people have seen. That's what we did at Wembley. That's what we did in Europe. That's, our costumes changed. Our looks were a little sleeker. Like the first look, it was Mad Max. I had a chain. That chain was heavy. It was a real chain. Sometimes it hit me, and I'm like, oh, our costumes got more comfortable for us, because Michael Bush was very amazing with, like, he was always like, make sure that you're comfortable, because if you're comfortable, you're going to do a great job. And I went, okay. So, we would talk to them, and they're like, stylistically, what do you like? So, you point out different things that you liked, at the time. Oh, I like this style, or this person's, the way they dress. And they tried to custom our looks to what we were into, again, keeping certain aspects of what we did in the first leg, but for the most part, I mean, I got like the tail on the back of my, like I had like my shirt was long in the back, and then it popped up here, and I had flames here. So, and then the 2 stripes that was my idea. I was like, I wanted to, I learned from when we did Smooth Criminal, you just reference things from films and you can recreate that. So I had seen The Road Warrior, and I knew that the guy with the mohawk was the guy they were kind of modeling my dancer persona after. So I was like, he had stripes. I want to have stripes. So that's literally why I have the stripes underneath, because I saw him, he had them on both. So I was like, it'd be cool if it's on one side. So that became my thing.
All right, y'all. Let's come to the center. Let's up it up. Break it down, break it down.
Hold it, hold it, hold it. Excuse me, sir. We don't allow that here. Now, Michael, that's nasty.
Especially in those pants, it's very nasty.
Oh! And you know that.
Michael, please go back and correct that man. See if you can.
Don't go over there. Seriously.
I'm not going to comment. I want to say nothing. And it still ain't have nothing. Shut up! We're going to scoop them.
My Lord, don't want share your body. Share your body. Mighty body. Share your body. You love your body. Share your booty, boy. Mighty booty. Share your funky. Mighty booty.
So similarly, how much creative input did you have as far as anything else, like the choreography, the makeup, that sort of thing?
As far as the choreography, it refers back to Vincent or anything original. When we are freestyling, we are pretty much straight up freestyling whatever we felt at the moment. I would freestyle and plan certain things out according to breaks, like certain little breaks. Don Boyette and myself had this little thing where I would turn and I would jump into a James Brown split, and he would grab me by the shirt and pull me up and throw me back up into the air. So we would plan that, like where that could work, where it wasn't distracting, so there were things you learn, like where to place certain things so that, again, you're not distracting or trying to take attention away from Michael, because he's the key focus. So pretty much that was it. I learned as I went along. Sometimes I think in the earlier part of the tour, I probably did more than I needed to, and because I was always trying to do so much to make sure I was doing like the craziest this or that, and then I learned how to simplify that, and I would listen to because Michael had always had notes for us. Listen to what he's saying. Where do you pull back? Because if you learn where those moments happen, they're a lot more special. If it's, if you're just constantly going, then it becomes distracting. It's too much. So I learned that, I think as I was maturing also, because I was like, I went from 17 to 19 and a half when I was, on tour. So that's a big change, just in everything, seeing the world. And I had, being on the road, all of the other people, I was the young one. They all knew I was the young one. So they all took care of me, and they always made sure that I was making sure I never got in trouble, which I didn't, but they wanted to be like, don't do this, don't do that. Make sure you're always like this. Make sure if someone ever comes up, and Michael would say, if they wanted an autograph, sign it. There's no reason you shouldn't. And I was like, oh, okay. So that whole learning process also, I think, added to, the more we were together as a band and as singers and the dancers, we all started, a lot of us still talk. We became a family and a unit, and that unit becomes something special and different. It's not like just showing up, working on a show, and you don't really know the people that are playing instruments behind you. You don't know the singers, we 2.5 years together, we really all started to really know each other. So I think that's what really made the Bad Tour so special, you
Yeah.
know. He was so dynamic. He was like,
Yeah.
I look at him when he did the Bad Tour, and it was that energy and that explosiveness. Like it was
Yeah,
just
he's
like,
at his peak.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I watched it and I'm just like, and I watched it when we went back for the 25th anniversary, and seeing it, you're just like, wow, you see how simple the set is,
Yeah.
but how unbelievably dynamic vocally,
Mm.
energy wise, like it was super special. Like it was a shining light at the time. And then all the other tours wanted to be like us.
Can you please walk me through your sort of average day on tour with Michael? So what would you do before and after the show?
So average day, wake up, go to, I think I was always second in makeup and hair. So it would be pretty early in the day. Like I want to say like 12, which, you know, our shows were like 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So my hair and my makeup would take about 2 hours. Like it was like a tedious process, making sure everything. So I would have this crazy hair and all this makeup. And then I have to put on glasses and go get food. And then I already know everybody's gonna be staring at me because I have this crazy hair and all this crazy makeup. So, you know, the glasses help hide a little bit of the makeup, but still, I mean, you can tell. So I'm like, so I always put my tour jacket on, so at least they know something's up, you know. I'd have most of the day. You just had to be really careful because you didn't want to like get anything, like I didn't want my hair to fall or usually I go get lunch, come back. We would have a certain time where we'd have to leave the hotel. So you wanted to be back, make sure you had everything in order, get on the bus, take the bus to the venue, and then you're at the venue for the rest of the day. So we'd have dinner at the venue. You have like, usually it was like dinner, start to warm up, you know, settle. There was a little cappuccino thing that they would do. One of the guys on the crew had this little like coffee setup, and I think we all gave him like $20 at the beginning of the tour. And he would make these little cappuccino things, and I would down like 3 of them before we started. So I'd be like, yeah. That was, I mean, basically it, you know, and then you do your show, and then after the show, we were leaving. So some music, so he would leave while the music's playing.
Right.
And then we would leave, we would finish, and the dancers were already, we'd be in our robes. If I remember right, I don't remember if we left in our costumes. I think we weren't in our costumes, but I can't remember. But it was always important that we got on the bus by a certain time to get out before the traffic.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think we went home in our costumes, and then we would give them to the wardrobe people at the hotel just to get us to the hotel. But I can't totally remember. I'm trying. I think that's what we used to do. Not always, but I think for the majority, because we had to go. Like the band walked off stage and went onto the bus, and we were out because people are just starting to file out. So we had to be out of the road before all that traffic. And then afterwards, usually then you're super hungry, you know, it's late at night. So the dancers usually hung out together. We would go find some place where we could have like a late night bite, kind of hang out. It's kind of a decompression, like you're trying to decompress from all of the energy. Try to get home not too late, because you know the whole thing starts again at 12 o'clock the next day. And we only did it weekends on the Bad Tour, which was more extreme. When we did the Dangerous Tour, it was a lot less, so it was quicker. Everything was quicker, easier.
How did you find the traveling?
I loved it. I still love it to this day. You know, it's like having the opportunity to go to another country and experience the people in that country. Part of like when we had time off or when we would go out is trying to experience the city or try and experience the culture, the food, the music. Like we would look for those kind of places because those are I didn't know if I would ever come back to any of these countries, So that I always found that really special. That's why it's like sometimes on days off, some of the musicians have been around the world so many times that they would stay at the hotel. I didn't. I'd go out and sightsee, go to museums, take pictures, see as much of everything as you can, as long as it never interfered with what we were doing for the show. That was the important part.
Did you have a favorite country or venue or anything that to perform at? Did anything stand out?
No, because they were all unique. They were
Yeah.
very unique and very different, and energy levels were always different and unique. And I think that's what's beautiful about the world, is that anywhere you go, there's something new and exciting, that you can experience, but you have to allow yourself to be open to experiencing it. So
Yeah.
I got to see some pretty cool things. All the concerts were always different. It could be the same songs, it's the same set, we're doing the same steps, but we're not doing it in the same way. Like the energy's always different. So that made every show exciting.
Did you have a favorite or least favorite costume that you wore on tour? And was there a particular costume kink that was more tricky than the rest?
The banana pants were tricky because they were really tight, and I ripped them. So, oh yeah. So I ripped them, and if you watch the Tokyo show, you'll see these two like stripes on the inside of my thighs. That's where I ripped. Like I ripped the whole thing open, and it was a cool look, but that was like, ooh. Getting out of Thriller was a little tricky, especially in the early days, because we had a lot of makeup. So we had to literally take all our makeup off and do all our makeup over. Once we got to the masks, it was the heat of the masks you had to get used to. That's why we had our mouths cut out, because it made it easier to breathe, Remember the Time was really hard, but that's because it was a full mask and it was gold. So
Right.
it was not a comfortable mask at all, like zero.
So is that one of the reasons why it was never included?
Partly. It was vocally also, it's in his higher register. So it was challenging for him to have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
So instead of hurting yourself, you make a decision. And it was a long piece, like it was very long. So he just made a decision. He felt that it was making the show drag a little bit, and it wasn't worth all of a lot of work went into it, and it was a beautiful number, but physically it was very demanding, and on him, on us, on everybody. So when he took it out, I was a little bummed, but not bummed, but I was a little bummed. It was neat because it was a different style for us.
Oh yeah.
But I think we did it once. I keep telling people that, and everybody, I have people that are going, "You guys never did it." I was like, "Yeah, I think we did it once."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think we did it once. There's still people that will argue and say, "No, you didn't." But Dorian even said, "I think we did it once." And I was like, "I thought so too." I think we were in Germany, and I think we did it once in Germany. But it was like literally, he's like, "I can't do it." Like he's like done. Like it was too much, because he would never not put something in. He would do it. Like if it's gonna be there. I mean, there was so much money put into that particular number. But yeah, I was a hot, sweaty mess after that. Oh, yeah.
Similarly, did you have a favorite or least favorite song to perform?
No, they were all fun. What I think made Michael unique was because every song had a different theme, different story, and he allowed us to be, "Hey, you guys are gang members that are fighting. Hey, you guys are gangsters. Hey, you're zombies. Hey, you're punk rock. Hey," And I loved doing Working Day and Night. That was fun. It was crazy long, and I would get a side cramp, but being able to do the magic trick was fun for me. Also a little scary because you want to make sure everything went right. So that part of it was scary. But once you kind of like having that chance to make him disappear and be that guy, hey, I made him disappear. That was fun,
Yeah.
That's why I got to do it on both tours. I was always the guy that made him disappear.
So what was the lean like? How did you feel about performing that?
I was the test subject for how that worked. Like I got to test out the different aspects of what we could basically do. You can lean this way, you can't lean that way. If you do this, you'll fall over that way. So, I learned, because I would try it, they would try it with me. And then once he got there, they had me show him. And then he was immediate. He always wanted to do it. Like he's just like, okay, let me try it. It was always his way of, he loved to do that. Like he loved that aspect of it. So the scariest thing about the lean is if it didn't work, it could go really, really horribly wrong. But I think I only had one misfire where it didn't work for me. And we had kind of if it doesn't happen, you just do this instead. And, we were pretty good and the crew was pretty good at working with us on that. Like we had pretty good communication. Occasionally there would be one little mishap, but it wasn't anything that we couldn't talk about. They usually would be like, so sorry, or be like, oh, hey, can you just wait 1 second? And I think that's the key is you always want to be cool with the crew because they'll take care of you and they'll help you out.
So was there ever a piece of choreography or a certain song that was more challenging or anything than the rest?
Remember the Time was challenging for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in the video.
Yeah.
So the other stuff wasn't because I was in the video. So like it was natural to me, like because I was there when it was being created. Remember the Time was like, oh, this is a whole different feel, that like pow, pow. I had to learn all like, it's a different way of moving. So it was challenging, but it was kind of fun. Travis taught it to us because he was in the video.
Yeah.
So when we learned it from him, it was just like, okay, what's that? All right, it's on that. And it's especially at the time, I really enjoyed learning new stuff. Like that was fun for me. But it was the most challenging physically to do because of we go to the floor, we get up, even in Smooth Criminal, we used to go to the floor at the beginning of the tour and then it got really hard on our knees. So we just took it out, took out the knee part because we need to last for 2.5 years. Remember the Time would have been hard to do a lot. Like we would have, it was tricky, it was a trick, and it was a lot of choreography. We had it all this other newer choreography at the beginning where we're doing some tutting stuff, and to get it. So learning the original choreography was cool. Having to unfortunately take it out, it was a bummer, but I was like, at the same time, so glad.
Now, did you spend much time with Michael outside of the actual shows, or was it more of a professional sort of? On
the Bad Tour, we spent more time with him outside of the show dates. Again, it had a lot with our scheduling. Our schedule was a little more, 4 days of days off and 3 days, of shows. So it made it much easier for all of us to be able to go do something because he would be rested, we would be rested. So we got to do a lot of really cool things with him. He would invite us a lot of times, so that was not as much on Dangerous because Dangerous was do a show, get in a bus, go somewhere else, do a show, so it was a little, we didn't have as much time off.
Yeah, this was quite a different scale compared to Bad when Ortega stepped in. So what was it like working with Michael then compared to the Bad Tour? And what was it like using the Toasters and seeing Rocket Man and all these newer things?
Well, we didn't do the Toasters on Dangerous, or at least in the beginning when I was there. We did the trampolines. We would like come out from behind. That was fun. You know, I like the opening of Jam was always fun. Like I was like, this is fun. I did have to test the toaster though, the one that he shot up through.
Yeah.
They had me do it really slow a few times, and then they had me do the fast one and jump. And then he got there and he jumps like 10 feet in the air, like he wasn't afraid to do it. He's like, wow. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even do that. Before we had that though, we had a different entrance. I had a rope swing where I came onto the stage from the side of the stage, like an old Errol Flynn movie, like it's swinging in. I was swinging. And I remember in rehearsals when we were trying, because he was trying to find cool entrances.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know how the dancers were going to get on stage. So they were like, oh, maybe they can, one of them could swing on and one of them can do this, and then one could jump on. So I did the rope swing, and we were in rehearsal once, and I got on the rope a little too low, so I hit the stage. I was like, ka-gunk. And he looked over and he started laughing at me, and I was like, I know, I'm sorry. You know, but that part of it, like, he always had a good humor about everything, you know.
Yeah.
And he allowed us, I mean, that's what rehearsals are for. You just figure out what works and what. Rocket Man was crazy because it was the loudest thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was so loud. They were like, yo. So like, we have like ear things in,
Right.
you know, the audience didn't, but we did, because we were like, and that's why you see us all like turning our heads, because once it goes, you're like, woo, that's a jet engine, you know. But it was fun, you know, seeing how it worked, you know, especially then. I mean, nowadays there's all kinds of crazy rocket men, but back then no one had ever done anything like that. So
Yeah, of course.
it was neat. It was neat to see the audience. I always had fun watching the first few rows as the rocket went over them, because they'd be like, you know, you see all their hair going. I was like, wow, look at their faces. But again, you know, there were things about the Dangerous Tour. The stage was magical on that. It was so complex for its time, even for now. I mean, it was huge.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did, like, you guys just saw it open like this, but it could go like this. It could go like that. Like, it could do all these other things. Like, because we tried stuff. We could go this way. We were trying all kinds of, what if we did this, or what if we did that, you know? So that was neat. And it was neat to see, like, when the Thriller stuff came up, you know, and that part of it was kind of cool, you know. It's like, oh, now we have like a set, which is cool. Then we'd never done anything like that.
So were there ever any funny moments or mishaps in all your time working with Michael?
Yeah. There was one time, it was on Bad Tour. He had been singing in this one area that I had to get to. I think it was on Working Day and Night. And so I moved to my area where I'm supposed to end for the hit, and he was sweating. So there was sweat on the floor, like, and I went to put my foot down to stop, and my foot slipped on his sweat, and I went into a James Brown split, and I popped back up and I stopped. And Don Boyette was behind me with the bass going. I was like, I know, right? It's crazy. I almost ate it. And he goes, oh no, you ate it, but you covered it up. And I was like, yep. And we're talking during the show. We're like, yeah, I'm okay.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was a little scary. That was actually, yeah, I was like, whoop, oh.
So you performed with Michael in this Super Bowl performance. Could you just tell me a bit more about this, please?
So again, you know, Vincent came in, and which was really cool to have Vincent back, you know. And when we did it, again, nothing had been done like this at that time, like this. So they're going to run out the stage from all four corners. They're going to put it together really fast. You guys are going to run out, get in place. We only have this amount of time before we go live. We had rehearsals, you know, working all that out. I think it was the day before we, you know, worked all that stuff out. it was fun, you know, and I'd never been to a Super Bowl, so that was kind of cool. You know, I couldn't believe how big the football players were because when you see them in real life, I was like, wow, you're a big dude. Like they were huge. And it was funny because, like, especially Dallas Cowboys, it was Dallas versus Buffalo. I'll never forget because I think we were changing over on the Dallas side, but we came through for where we were coming on over in the Buffalo side, and the Dallas players just to me looked really big. Like I was like, wow, I think they're gonna win. They did too. They won by a lot.
So Michael's concerts and shows were always so high energy, especially for you as the dancers. So how did you feel, and how did you sort of keep up with such an intense schedule?
Rehearsals, you know, we rehearsed full out, like our first before we did the first leg in Japan, Michael had us do the whole show, each of us one at a time. So
Wow.
he sat there with the other 3 dancers and you did the whole show by yourself.
That must have been, I mean, sort of intense.
It was intense. It was intense. He was sweet though, you know. He was like, oh, that was, he always started with a compliment and then he'd tell you everything you did wrong, you know. And it's like, oh, that was fantastic, but you know, do this and do this, you know. And that was that prepped me though, because that was scary. Like for me, I was like, my heart was pounding. Don't mess up. Don't, you know, I was shaking. The more you did the show, the more comfortable you got.
Yeah.
Got used to the pacing. Occasionally we would either be in a place that was really hot, so you had to learn how to adjust, you know, to the weather there, or raining was crazy. If it rained, that stage became like an ice rink, so you had to maybe don't do this, maybe don't do that, be careful, you know, just everything, just always be aware, you know, of where you are, what you're doing. We were in Denver, Colorado. It's really high.
Yeah.
So we had oxygen on the side of the stage, so that in between numbers we could breathe oxygen so that we could go back out, because we didn't have enough time to adjust to the altitude. That was a little rough. The third night we were good. The first night was rough. It was like, okay.
So do you still have any memorabilia or items or costumes or anything from your time working with Michael?
I have some t-shirts that I got when we were like, I have a whole box full of t-shirts from both tours. Like the stuff they would sell in the stadiums, sometimes the stuff that they would sell outside of the stadium that wasn't supposed to be being sold. And so our guy would confiscate it, and then he would give it to us. He'd be like, here. So I have a lot of those shirts that are really cool. There's one shirt, it's one of my favorites. It's 5 spotlights and it's our silhouettes and it's all of us. And they never made it for the tour, but someone made it and it was really cool. So I was like, it's my favorite shirt because we're on it. Yeah. I have some Pepsi stuff that like we got when we were in certain cities that we kept. I have a dangerous champagne bottle. It's actually at my sister's. It's actually here. My gloves that I used to wear, because I had so many of them. They were so they were paintball gloves, like for paintball. So they're triggered. It's only so this part of my hand is, you know, my fingers are exposed, and then this was like all covered. So I had a gazillion of those. So they were like, oh, if you want to take some, I was like, okay. You know, yeah. I tried to keep all like my t-shirts and pins and all those things, because again, you never know when you're going to be on a tour like that, you know, so those things are really special.
Yeah, that's great. So what would be your number one favorite memory of your time with Michael?
I think our rehearsal process before we left for Japan was really special because it was just him and us, and it was just 5 of us in a room, and learning things from him and having him. It was very intimate for us, and I think that's what made our group special, like that particular group of dancers. I think the later incarnations didn't get to experience that as much. I'm sure they had their own experiences that were really beautiful and amazing, but that was very special.
Yeah, definitely.
I knew it was special because after I had not been touring with him, and I ran into him one time at a record store. He was there looking for new music. I was there looking at video games, just random. And he came up to me and gave me a hug and was so sweet and was talking about how special that tour was. He kept talking about, wasn't that the most amazing time? Wasn't that just like, it was special for all of us. Like, it was just, what a unique thing. You've been Michael Jackson of the Jackson 5. You've always toured with your brothers, and now you're on your own. And that was the first time. Like, that was the first time with 4 dancers. Like, that was like, so there was a lot of firsts then, which I think really made it very unique.
Yeah, definitely. So did Michael ever give you any sort of advice as far as dancing goes, or did he ever say anything special to you?
So our first show in Japan, we're underneath the stage because, we used to walk out from underneath the stage. I'm sure you've seen the concert like 1,000 times. So we were underneath the stage and we're sitting there, the panels are above us, and I was shaking like I couldn't stop. Like, I was just like, and he was next to me and he goes, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Uh-huh." and he goes, "That's good." He goes, "Take this in." He goes, "This is going to be the only time you ever feel this feeling right here. This first show, first. It was the first of everything." And he goes, and then he goes, "Take it in." And then he goes, "And then go out there and hurt him." And I was like, "Okay." And that confidence of like, let's go and let's give them everything we got was, and the fact that he was trying to give me words of advice before his own show, and he was trying to calm me to let me know that it was okay to feel the way I was feeling at that time, was really, really special and beautiful. And I went, you're a cool human being. You're a nice person. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It really helped me. And I especially nowadays, I try to emulate that as much as possible. It's hard sometimes because, you're so focused on your work and you want it to go right. But at the end of the day, there's no reason why you can't be positive, be empathetic of the people around you, and try to help each other. I always tell dancers, I'm like, it's not a competition. We're not competing against each other. You're competing against yourself. You want to get better, but on stage, we're a team. We have to hold each other up. We're only as good as the weakest link. So none of us can be weak,
Yeah.
And I learned that from him. We're all a team. All of us, like the band members, the singers, we're all a team. It's not the dancers, the singers, the band. That separation, it's not, you can't have that. You have to be cohesive, one group. And that's what was special about both tours. You felt that. I felt it on both of my tours. It felt like a family.
Besides your work with MK, what has been your greatest career achievement to date? And do you have any other favorite artists you've worked with?
Anytime I get to work with anybody is again it's a blessing. I recently my greatest achievement, every day I wake up is my greatest achievement. Every day I have an opportunity to entertain people, to creatively put something out. I have a wonderful wife who's always very supportive, who she and I think make a great team, and we I'm trying to learn how to be a better teacher all the time. You know, again, I don't always succeed, but I try. You know, I'm working with students. I work with dancers. I want to help create confidence in what they're doing. You know, so I try really hard to, like, I'll go home and I'll talk to my wife and I was like, hey, was I right or was this wrong? And she'll be straight up. She'll tell me, oh,
Yeah.
you can do this better. Or I mean, I've done some pretty cool stuff. I worked with Jennifer Lopez for about 10 and a half months.
Oh, wow.
Choreographed 2 videos with my buddy Chris Judd, who actually was on tour with Michael during the very end of the Dangerous tour, like Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then the History tour. He did the whole History tour.
Yeah.
But he and I choreographed for Jennifer Lopez, you know, for 10 months, and did a bunch of shows for her. And that was really cool and unique, you know, and special for me. Recently, I've had former students and former people that I've worked with that have called me to do little cameo things on certain. I did an episode of Lucifer that was fun. I did Mariah Carey did a Christmas special last year that I was blessed to be a part of.
Wow.
Yeah, so you know, it's fun when you have an opportunity to dance. You know, I'm trying to get back into better shape. You know, you kind of get older and you kind of, you know, I'm teaching, yeah, I can, you know, don't do that, like always stay like but I love creating. That's the part, that's what I'm really into now, like the chance to be creative and create. I like telling stories because that's how I was trained, how to tell stories. So I'm really hoping there's some projects which I can't talk about that are coming up in the new year that I am really feeling super, super, super blessed to be a part of. If everything continues to go the way it is, it's really going to give me some wonderful opportunities to do some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, that's basically it. Get ready to do a Christmas show, putting that together. Yeah. So yeah, easy, fun live event, you know, which is, again, you know, with everything that's happened in the world, I think having the opportunity to bring happiness to people is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Finally, do you have any tips or advice for anyone who'd like to become a professional dancer, please?
Do it because you love it. Be okay with criticism. Always make sure you're good to yourself and be good to the people around you. And dance is very special because it gives you an opportunity to share things with others emotionally, spiritually, you know, everything about it. It can touch so many people in so many different ways that you are sometimes aware of and sometimes unaware of. That could be good or bad. So being aware is really important. Learn from mistakes. Make yourself every day. If you make a mistake, it's okay.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, it's really like even like when you're dancing, if you don't do something perfect, it's okay because you can learn from it and you can get better. Allow yourself that freedom to know that there's always room for improvement. Nobody's perfect, and perfection is overrated. You know, it's boring. You know, being unique is more interesting.
Definitely.
You know, I always the kids I teach. You know, I run a summer camp. We had to take some time off because of all the COVID stuff, which I'm eventually going to bring back. But my goal is to get it's usually teenagers, get them in an environment outdoors where they can see nature and they feel like hear the wind and put their phones down for a week and not like touch them, and understand that dance is deeper. It's a deeper place, you know, because it comes from inside and comes out. being respectful. I'm trying to be respectful of other dancers, other choreographers, and even my students. Be respectful of your students, because my job as a teacher is to encourage them and lift them up and not to bash them. So I'm been really working hard to make sure that I do that. Especially because I'm trying to do this camp to encourage kids to find out who they are, and tell them that that's what makes each of us special and unique. And that's what makes people want to watch you. There's something I tell people too, it's really important. We all have people that we look up to.
Yeah.
You look up to them, but also understand that you're just as special and you're just as important, and you have something that's very specific to you that someday someone will probably look up to too. So if you embrace that, it'll really changes everything.
So thank you so much. That's really great advice, and best of luck with your dance camp.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we're hoping. I'm not sure if we can do this next year, but we're hoping within the next couple of years. That's my goal again. As it's called Camp Me. It's all about empowering the youth of today, getting them to understand. A lot of my friends that are choreographers and dancers here in Hollywood come up, and it gives the kids a chance to spend a few days with these I'm pretty amazing people who feel the same way about dance that I do, which is it's very special and unique to what we can offer the world.
Yeah.
And if we can, I don't need every kid I teach to become a dancer. I need them to feel good about who they are and be good people, and if we can encourage that, and through our movement and through our dance and our love of that, we find that common ground. That's why we got along so well with Michael, is he loved dance so much.
Yeah.
He loved it. So that was our common goal. And I love music because music makes me move, so being around one of the greatest of all time, and seeing how he worked, and seeing I'll never forget when we were rehearsing for Dangerous. You'll like this story. We're on stage, he beatboxes and sings,
Yeah.
and he started doing some of the tracks from Dangerous. The album wasn't out yet. We'd only heard the few tracks that the band knew. And he started doing some of the other tracks, like beatboxing. And I was like, what track is that? And he was like, oh yeah, it's going to be on. Yeah. And I was like, what? So that was such because when we did Bad, I never heard him do that. Yeah. But on Dangerous, woo, I was like, what is that? I know it was so, it was really dynamic. I'm great. Be grateful to the people that trained you, the people that I'm grateful for my sister. She's amazing. My wife, like I said, my dog's pretty cool. Yeah. He's really cool. He's the sweetest dog ever. He's amazing. His name's Indiana Jones. Yeah. So,
that's great.
But be grateful and I always tell kids, I'm like, learn your history, man. Learn about the people that came before you, and all of the greats do that. All of them, they know everything about everything before. It's very important, especially nowadays with phones. It's real easy, two things, to get caught up and only spend time in what's now. Oh, yeah. But you can utilize it and use it to learn about things before. Learn who influenced Michael, and vocally, where do those things come from? He tells you, he has stories. He talks about, oh, I love this singer, or I love that singer. And I always tell dancers the same thing. Learn your history, learn where all of the stuff came from, because it leads you into other avenues and other things that maybe you've never seen, and it'll inspire you, and your brain will start to go pa, 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 pa.
Now, before we go, do you have any social media that you'd like to mention if anyone wants to follow you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram. You can follow me at Cuban_Ed. On Facebook, it's a little harder because I think I hit my max with my friends on Facebook. But I think I have to look. I think it's Eddie G3 or Eddie Garcia. I don't even know because Facebook's a little different.
Yeah.
What's it under? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, Eddie G3. Yeah, Eddie G3. So you do the Facebook and it's Eddie G as in Garcia 3.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing. But also, if you want to follow my camp on Instagram, we're under Camp Me. I think it's Camp Me Dance. Let me check real quick. It's under, Camp Me Dance. I'd appreciate any of the followers. Twitter, it's Eddie G Funk, like funky. I don't know why, but that's just the way. I don't tweet as much though. My tweets are usually coming from the other stuff. TikTok, I have a TikTok, but I don't post anything. I like to watch the food TikToks. I do. Oh man, they come up with some crazy stuff. I was like, well, I'm gonna try that. Sometimes it really works, sometimes not so much. The upside down pizza, I heard doesn't work. Have you done that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, yeah, you make you put it in a pan and you kind of do it upside down, and then you're supposed to be able to flip it at the end and pull the pan up. I've only seen it on the demo version. They're like, look, it's fantastic. Everybody else is like, it's a fail.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Oh, okay. So what are you aspiring to be? What is your goal?
Well, I love dancing. I have for a few years now. I dance in the style of Michael Jackson. Well, I try to at least.
No, I've seen your videos. Yes, I've watched you.
Thank you.
And I think you've improved quite a bit since the first video that I saw of you to where you're at now. I can tell you've been practicing a lot.
Yeah, almost every day. So I really enjoy my dancing and like computer sort of stuff, like the editing these interviews and my dance videos. So maybe somehow combine the two.
Absolutely. You should continue to like explore all of those things that inspire you.
Yeah.
And you're only limited by how much you're willing to take a chance on stuff. As a dancer, sometimes, like I said, sometimes you don't get the job you want.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's just at that time you're not supposed to be there. It's preparing you for something else. I encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, continue to, just and if you love dance, explore as many forms of it as you can.
Yeah.
Even if it's just going to watch, just seeing it, if you can have a chance to see it, even if you're watching it on videos, just exploring and watching. There's so many wonderful dancers of so many different styles from all over the world. I'm constantly I've been doing a lot actually on my Instagram. I'm following all these beautiful groups from all over the world that dance differently than I do, because again, it informs me differently. Michael used to do that. He would, his styles of dance were so, his style is from so many different other styles.
Oh,
and
yeah, definitely.
And the people that he watched. And if you know who he looked up to, you'll see their influence in how he moves. You'll know where the move came from. You'll be like, oh, he got that from that person, and he learned that from that person. And he learned it and wanted to be the best at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Thank you ever so much. So thanks again for doing this interview. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to talk with you. We've had some really, really interesting stories, and I'm looking forward to talking with you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and wanting to speak to me.
I'll talk with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.